with a WWE legend told he would be fired and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Reflecting on his time with WWE and more specifically working on NXT, former executive for the company, Michael Manzarek, who is now with AEW, told The Sessions, "To this day, probably the most magical in my career, and as cheesy as it sounds to use a word, you were there. You were a part of it, you know? While still under the WWE umbrella, we were kind of all together creating the anti-WWE product. It was a combination of just good old-fashioned sports entertainment from the late 80s, where we're creating all of these characters but also leaning into what wrestling had become in the early 2010s. You're hearing all the buzz about Ring of Honor, PWG, all these promotions have, right? And in essence, a lot of the very best of the best from the indie scene found themselves at NXT, but a nice litany of folks had converted over from being, guys like Baron Corbin who were in the NFL, etc. So there was this nice collection of talent down there, and there was a collection of talent behind the scenes that were all hungry and looking to establish themselves, and I don't know that anything in my career is going to replicate what those first few years of NXT were like, because it was just an unbelievably special moment, and it just felt like a movement, you know what I mean? Speaking about the possibility of Vince McMahon returning to WWE, Teddy Long told the Sports Get a Wrestling podcast, well, this is Vince's life. He's done this his whole entire life. And to be away, I would imagine that takes a lot from him not being able to involve himself into what he's been involved in all his life. My thing is, I don't see where there was any reason for him to step down or go away. I mean, that's just my opinion, because I don't know the circumstances or all the facts about what's been going on, but I just didn't see any reason for him to step away. And if he wants to come back, let him come back. Let him be Vince. Vince is going to be Vince. Sometimes he gives good advice. Sometimes he gives bad advice. But he's also man enough to know when he does give bad advice, he corrects himself or does something about it. I like to see him come back. I got no problem with it. Staying on the topic of a potential return to WWE for the former chairman and CEO, Jim Cornette said on his podcast, well, the questions to, or the answers to both those questions have come when as soon as that article was released and that statement from Vince McMahon was in there, the stock price went down a couple dollars. And secondly, well, all we've been talking about for the past couple months now or more, guys want to go back and work for Triple H. So no, I think it's bad creatively because Raw is not setting, or all programs are not setting the world on fire with the ratings either, but at least they're trying to do something to get out of that goofy funk they were in the last little while with Vince. And so yeah, I don't see a lot of the guys wanting a Vince return. The old guys that made a ton of money with Vince and worked with him when he, before he lost his mind apparently, they love him and they take up for him. But I think the guys that were there and having a buck up under all that stuff, I think Vince, for PR, for creative, and potentially just for hiring, he needs to be separated from that situation. But it's his. How can you separate him if you don't want to be separated? I said a couple months ago, maybe it was by now, that he is the kind of guy that he said to Triple H, it's yours now. You're picking the flavor of ice cream, so I'm not going to interfere. Well, that's best for business. And that's an opinion that Vince will have until he changes his mind and he thinks that, well, maybe, damn it, might be better if I did something else and came back or whatever. And then that might be tough talking about it. Taking to Twitter to give an update on his sobriety, WCW legend Buff Bagwell posted this video.
Today is 117 days sober. Wow, I didn't think I could ever say the words days sober. I mean, I'm sure there was a day I was sober, but not days consecutively. But I am so thankful that today I can wake up and say, today is 117 days, man. That's a great feeling, and I'm really thankful, so thankful for just being strong enough to do this. And the reason I'm strong enough to do this is because of the support team I've had, man. Dallas and his whole team at the PC here, and Steve Yu, and my niece Jonna, and just family and friends along. Everybody's been a part of this, but my sobriety is number one now. It just seems like yesterday, it wasn't even a topic, but now that it is, I'm just so thankful. The next steps in my sobriety is to pass it along, to pass on what I have learned. And I just wanted to reach out eye to eye and tell everyone how grateful and thankful I am for this walk that I've gone on, and thank all my fans for hanging with me and sticking with me, and just knowing that I was going to pull out and come back to this Marcus that's speaking right now, the Marcus that is looking into the camera telling you that I'm happy. I am happy again, man. And it's such a great feeling, this is a great feeling. Thank you guys for listening to me. Again, Merry Christmas. Love you guys.
Appearing on William Regal's podcast, Dax Harwood talked about his relationship with Road Dogg in WWE, who is the senior VP of live events, as he said. So I had my own reservations about him, and then come later that year, I want to say it was right around December, there was some sort of gimmick gauntlet tag team match on SmackDown, and for some reason, the fans thought the Revival were gonna make their debut there. The fans were tweeting and freaking out over it, and the match was over. We were heels, so I went on Twitter and said, if you fans thought that we were gonna debut on the main roster in a stupid gimmick gauntlet match, you've lost your mind, or something like that. At the time, Road Dogg was booking, and he took offense to that because I wrote stupid gimmick, and he proceeded to write on Twitter that if I kept it up, he would make sure I would never make it to the main roster. If I never make it to the main roster, that cuts into my money, which cuts into the money that I make for my family, which I can provide for my daughter to go through college, or I can make sure my wife has food on the table, and that's what bothered me. Then right after he put that tweet out, I got a text from Mark Carano, former senior director of talent relations, which led to a call from both those guys to make sure they were covering their tracks, because Road Dogg basically said he was going to make sure I would never have any advancement in the company. Legally, they're not allowed to do that because they're in powerful positions in the office, and for him to say, I'm going to make sure that you're not going to move up and you can't advance your money, legally, they shouldn't be able to do that, so they were trying to cover their tracks. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the AEW contract situation for William Regal was explained, as he is expected to take on a vice president role in WWE. Just to clarify, the William Regal leaving stuff is that WWE sources were correct that Regal did have an opt-out on February 24th, but Tony Khan had an opt-out on December 22nd. So the contract did end before Regal could leave it without Khan's permission. But Regal could have gotten out of it just 2 months later. The impression I have is that Regal will be going quiet once he starts with WWE, and his final podcast airs this week. He didn't actually tape a new podcast since November. Even though Regal is gone, Bryan Danielson talked heavily about him on Dynamite to build for his upcoming title match with MJF. No date was announced for the match. With Jeff Hardy set to have a pre-trial hearing for his DUI arrest in Florida over the summer, PW Insider reported that on December 20th, the court granted Jeff Hardy's motion to postpone his scheduled pre-trial hearing in connection with his DUI arrest in Florida. The new hearing date is January 18th, 2023. While the story is out there that Sasha Banks is in Japan and rumored to be appearing at Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan on January 4th, it seems the company did want to keep this under wraps, as Dave Meltzer noted in the Observer newsletter. While New Japan nor Stardom has yet to make an announcement regarding Mercedes/Sasha Banks and the Tokyo Dome, Banks was noted as going to Japan this week, looking at marketing herself in that country. While this decision can be changed, as all can, at the moment they're working with the idea of not announcing her appearance ahead of time and making it a surprise ahead of time. With Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland a part of AEW and former tag team champions for the company, it seems they were contacted about making a return to WWE. As Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio, there's guys there, Keith Lee and Strickland obviously, they had chances to go back and they didn't. They didn't even entertain it, but a lot of the guys wanted to leave. The guys who signed there, they're guys who really want to be in WWE and just got fired and everything, but can't wait to get hired back. I don't know that those guys have been that beneficial. As previous reports point out that a return to WWE is likely for Chelsea Green, who left Impact Wrestling not long ago, an indication for her comeback was given. It seems her OnlyFans has been taken down, with a notification appearing to say, "Sorry, this page is not available." Green also created further speculation yesterday, posting a photo from a match she had on Raw against Charlotte Flair. With WWE recently preventing D-Von Dudley from appearing at a non-WWE event, which was set to be a tribute to Extreme Wrestling, it's been revealed by the Wrestling Observer that D-Von was told that he'd lose his job. WWE did pull D-Von from the event, both the live show and the convention. He was scheduled to be in the corner of Bubba Ray for his match with Matt Cardona. He went through John Cone in Talent Relations, who reportedly approved of the booking, and he believed, based on his contract, since he's not a wrestler, that he was able to do things like that. Bruce Pritchard nixed the booking, and it ended up on the desk of Paul Levesque. Hughes has said he was going to do it because he gave his word on it, and Levesque didn't give approval, and he was basically told if he did it, he'd be fired. So he didn't do it. There was no real reason past the claim that they didn't want him in a physical risk, but I'm not sure how much physical risk there is in pulling out a table since he was not scheduled for any physicality himself. It was previously reported that AEW pitched a return to Miro in September, which would build to a match at Full Gear for last month. It was even mentioned in that report from The Observer that people coming from WWE are leery of losing. Miro's wife also recently came out in an interview, saying that Rusev Day will make a return to WWE at some point. Responding to this news of him turning down creative plans in September, Miro wrote on Twitter, "What happened between January and June?" In some unfortunate news, pro wrestling legend Dutch Mantell would take to Twitter to reveal that he got robbed, as he wrote, "Walking down the street in Nashville today, thinking about what a great country the USA is. I thought how lucky I am. Then somebody threw a rock, hit me in the head, and I got robbed. Now I'm at the ER with a concussion. Where's James Storm when I need him?" Of course, we wish Dutch all the best and hope to see him get well soon. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.